Welcome to another episode of Danny Brown Talks Phoenix. I am Danny Brown, and today I am joined by Brent Stanphill of Arizona Crank Yankers. Brent is a mountain biking aficionado, and the Arizona Crank Yankers are a mountain biking club. Brent, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Crank Yankers?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm part of Crank Yankers. It's a Arizona mountain biking group that we formed probably about 4 years ago. And it started out with just a few friends of ours, and it's grown quite large since then just because of social media.
Sure.
People want to get involved with mountain biking. They want to find new friends to ride with and so forth. So we essentially established this group that allows people to come out, hang out, and go ride the Arizona trails with us from anywhere from beginner all the way to expert riders. And so we promote, rides on various weekends, and we do outings with large groups or other organizations throughout the state.
Wow.
To go camp and ride and help out with trail maintenance now and then, and just be advocates of good etiquette and mountain biking throughout the community and Arizona.
Very cool. Very cool. So you said you started out with just a few members as friends, and how large is the group now?
Well, we have about 500 Facebook friends on our group now. We don't have 500 members that show up for every ride.
That's probably a good thing.
Whatnot. But we started off really between a friend of mine and I mountain biking here in Arizona. I've been mountain biking since 1997. Pretty religiously. And when I moved out here to Arizona in 2003, I started getting involved with the trails around here. And I met a buddy of mine who also rides, and we started riding. So our marketing director for the company I work for, he had an interest in mountain biking. And so he came on, bought himself a new specialized mountain bike stump jumper, and we took him out on some of the local trails, and he fell in love with it. And being a marketing guy, he helped establish this group to get more people involved in it.
That's fantastic.
And it's just grown ever since. And so it really just started from the three of us, and now we have a whole community of riders, that
like-minded individuals.
Yeah, because people go out and they say, I want to get into a sport or into a hobby, and they don't, and they try mountain biking, they fall in love with it, but now they need to meet some friends and want to go out and ride with other groups to go explore and so forth.
Yeah, I've mountain biked a little bit, and it's a lot more fun when you're out there with a few buds rather than just by yourself.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, a little safer. And if you end up damaging your bike, you can...
Now, don't get me wrong. It's great to go out by yourself to practice, to ride,
sure,
to clear your head. Mountain biking or biking in general is one of those therapeutic activities that you can do that's healthy, that just you go out with no thoughts in mind, or you start off with thoughts in mind and end up with no thoughts in mind because you're just out there just clearing your mind.
Is that one of the reasons why you got into mountain biking?
I got into it because I was living kind of an unhealthy lifestyle, and I met a friend of mine who was riding professionally back in Michigan, where I'm from, Grand Rapids, and he pretty much kicked my ass and told me, he's like, listen, you need to stop doing the stuff you're doing and get involved in this because you're going to love it. And I did. It took me a while because I was smoking cigarettes and everything else back then too, and I just made a conscious decision to be determined to keep up with these guys.
Yeah.
In the forest and so forth. And it was just so rewarding to hang out with these guys, and they took me under their wing. And the guy that was more of this inspiration for me ended up going on to racing professionally for the Santa Cruz Syndicate.
Wow.
And every race he would enter in Michigan, he would win first place. And
Sounds
I'd
like
always
quite
be
the mentor.
He was, yeah. And I would always come in, way in the back and whatnot, and he'd get his award, and he'd be like, "Hey, Brent, come on up here," and I'd come up, and with a beer in hand, whatever, because if you drink, or if you ride mountain bikes, you got to drink beer.
Absolutely.
It's kind of one of those things.
It's your reward once you finish.
Yeah. And so he's like, hey, come on up here, and then he'd put his medal around my neck, and then kind of just like push you away. He's like, all right, go have fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So do you take some of the lessons then that you learned from him when you were a beginner and kind of applied that to your group, the Crank Yankers?
Well, yeah, that, and, you're always learning when you're riding. When you really get involved with it, you're learning about how to maintain your bike, how to ride properly, rider etiquette in terms of how to deal with hikers on the trails, just how to repair something in the field if you blow out your tire while you're riding.
Happens quite a bit here.
Or a chain that snaps, or you get hurt. So there's essentials that you have to keep with you when you ride, especially out here in the desert.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't go out without water.
Right.
You don't go out without a spare tube, or CO2s, or, the type of stuff that you want to keep in your pack, in the sense of medical equipment and gear like gauze pads and things like
all that stuff's really important. I think you kind of need a lot of that gear even if you're just going hiking. So I would imagine that a lot of our audience probably has a bunch of this stuff already. Just from going out and hiking. And I love being in Central Phoenix because there are so many great trails to get to that are very close. And so what are some of the favorite trails that you have and that you guys tend to ride on?
Well, it's all based on mood, and what are you feeling today in the sense of what do you want to ride? So, obviously if you're starting out and you really just want to put in the miles and go fast and not have to worry about technical trails, there's Brown's Ranch up in Scottsdale. And that's a real popular trail for
Where's Brown's Ranch?
Gosh, I think it's over off of Dynamite near Pima Dynamite area.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I just know it's up in that area.
Sure.
I could take you there. I don't know the streets. It's one of those trails that is just rolly, just kind of sandy in some aspects. There's some berms. You can get some good speed on it. There's still a little bit of climbing, but it's not going to be extremely technical where you're going to have to negotiate through rock boulders or like any major sections that would throw you over the handlebars. You can find that out there. You have to seek it out, but for the majority of the beginners, Brown's Ranch is one of those. A trail, one of my favorite trails to ride around here is Haws, and that's out in the East Valley.
Okay.
Off the 202, and I think it's Power Road. And there's a really nice trail system out there, and you get a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You get the technical, you get the fast flowy stuff. It's a good trail system out there, and you can put in some good miles. Now, out here closer to home in the Central Phoenix area, there's Trail 100, the Phoenix Mountain Preserve.
Yep.
And there's two sides to it. There's the Dreamy Draw side, and then there's the Cave Creek side. Cave Creek side seems to be a little bit more tame, and that's going to take you over towards 7th Street and in that area. But you can also ride from there all the way over underneath the bridge of the 51 and take it over to the Dreamy Draw.
I've hiked that and biked that with you.
Yes, and that area over there gets a little rocky, a little technical over at the Dreamy Draw side, and so it's a little more challenging for, I'd say, a beginner. It's more of an intermediate trail, but it's a great place to learn.
Sure.
And you're not gonna get stuck out there because everything is in pretty much close proximity. But moving on for distance riding, Cave Creek. There's the Cave Creek Classic Trail. We call it C4. And they generally hold a race out there. It's a 24-mile ride loop, and it goes all the way through Cave Creek. And you can get far out, into the desert there. And those are the type of rides I enjoy doing because there's a good amount of climbing, there's a good amount of downhill, there's a good amount of technical side of things where you have to be on top of your game. But, the thing is with riding out there, I've done it several times by myself. And those are kind of like one of those rides where you're thinking about snakes. And it's like, what happens if I get bit by a rattlesnake? What do I do? You know, and those
Yeah,
are the things that you think about when you're pedaling through. And you know, knock on wood, that never happens. But those are things that you just have to think about. And it's like, man, I should have packed this, or I should pack, you know, a rubber band, because if you get
for like a tourniquet.
yeah, exactly. And you start thinking about the things that you really need to have in your backpack when you're riding.
Yeah,
long
I've lived here
distance
my
and so
whole
forth.
life and have hiked and mountain biked all over the place. And the only time I've ever seen a rattlesnake in the wild was in Cave Creek out hiking.
Yeah.
And scared the pants off me.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get anything out there. Javelina, you know, wild horses, cattle just roaming around. I've been chased by cattle before. It's
On your bike?
like stampede.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was crazy. We were riding, where was it? Up from Prescott, that exit off of from 17 to Prescott 69, and they call it Black Canyon Trail. And we shuttled it. We had a car up there, and then a car down on, what is it? It's trying to remember. It's the road off of I-17. It's real windy. It goes through Cleator and up to Crown King. But we parked a car down on that road. I think it's Bloody Basin Road. And we were riding through, and I got caught into like these cattle, and they just like charged me
Wow.
as I was
That'd be terrifying.
riding. And I had to effing like get on my like get out of the way. And I finally got out, you know, and I was safe, but that was pretty freaky.
Yeah, I bet. Have you seen, there's a YouTube video out of that mountain biker that's being chased by the bear?
Yeah, I don't think that's real.
No, you think that's fake?
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, I can't say that doesn't happen. I mean, I've seen pictures of, you know, like bear signs and so forth, especially up in the in Colorado and the high mountain range, Utah and so forth. And you'll get moose and all sorts of large animals. And
I would think you'd be making enough noise, though, mountain biking, that most animals would probably...
You know, it's funny. I just got back from up in Park City area last week, and we saw moose just right on the trail. And,
Wow.
And from what I understand, those things have kind of mind of their own, and based on the way that they feel, they could charge you.
Sure.
You know, and I mean, that could happen with anything really, but moose, I guess you really have to be careful because they're
Well,
timid.
fortunately, we don't have many moose in Phoenix.
No, we don't have moose in Phoenix, but
So if somebody is thinking about getting into mountain biking or is a bit of a novice, you know, what are some things that you recommend to them to kind of get started, supplies that they should have? You know, does somebody need to go out and spend thousands of dollars on a bike if they're just kind of toying with the idea of getting out on the trails?
well, it depends on their level of what their goals are.
Sure.
I mean, sure, if you're gonna go just ride Brown's Ranch here now and again, or something mild in the sense, you know, you don't have to go buy, you know, a $2,000 bike. I would have to say that, you know, in terms of mountain biking, $2,000-$2,400 is pretty much the entry of something that's going to have decent components and it's going to be fairly reliable. You know, if you know you're just gonna go out here and there, I think you could get away with, you know, a bike that's going to be around $800,000. Hardtail, you know, for around here.
What's a hardtail?
A hardtail is, it doesn't have rear suspension.
Okay.
It's just a bike with front suspension, and
So probably a rougher ride.
it's gonna be rigid. It's gonna be rigid. A lot of guys like to take those rigid bikes and make them single speed, which means that they have no gears and they just are one speed essentially, and they go ride the mountains with. And I got to give kudos to those type of guys because I mean they're extremely strong, and the leg power you got to have to. And
I was gonna say, because you got to go up, and the whole idea behind the gears is so that you can go. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So I mean, you can get a really nice hardtail for, you know, under $1,000.
Okay.
And there's several places online or local shops that I could recommend.
Are
look
there?
that up.
I would imagine with something like mountain biking, there's probably a lot of former weekend warriors that probably sell equipment that they no longer use.
So there's several sites on Facebook. One is called Steve's Bay. and it's a mountain. It's like all related to biking. So if you go to facebook.com and go to Steve's Bay, you'll see local posts throughout of people selling, whatever you need. Not so much tires, but wheels, cassettes, handlebars, things that they just don't want on there.
And that's Steve's Bay, like I live down by the bay, BAY.
It's Steve's Bay. Yeah, BAY.
Okay.
Yeah. Another good site to check out is Pink Bike. Now, for mountain biking, Pink Bike is really the go-to.
Okay.
And that is a national website that will have classifieds from all over, and you can categorize what you're looking for based on price point and so forth. I've sold bikes on Pink Bike, and that's a really good way of doing that. I bought pretty much a whole bike from Pink Bay sourcing components.
Then built it yourself?
Yeah, like from a Fox factory fork, for a carbon mountain bike that I own that I was looking for a specific one. I found it on Pink Bike from a guy out of Colorado.
Wow.
And just called him up and made him an offer, and he said, okay. So, so those are the kind of deals that you can get from that site. Also, Pink Bike is part of an app called Trail Forks, and this is one that you and your listeners should actually check out. Is trailforks.com or pinkbike.com will lead you to the Trail Forks. You can download the app for Trail Forks, but that will give you all the trails within your geographic location.
Oh, wow.
Anywhere in the country, if not the world, I believe.
Does it rank them by difficulty?
It does, and it will rank them by difficulty, and then it'll give rider reviews all based on that trail.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and so you can then assemble trail routes with utilizing various trails that are on Trail Forks, and then if you utilize Garmin, which is a GPS system for your bike or your watch, you can load the map file, which we call a GPX file, into that GPS. And so as you're out by yourself or with a group and you're leading the group on a new trail ride, it'll give you turn by turn navigation while you're riding.
Is that something that you can put on your phone instead of having to buy?
You can, yeah. You can put it on your phone and use. A lot of people do that. I tend to utilize the Garmin watch, the Phoenix 5, because everything's there, and it also tracks my heart rate and my speed. And
if you crash, you're not going to worry about necessarily scratching up the face of your phone.
Well, and with that, it also it has an alert. If you crash, it will send an alert to a person that I've designated to.
Okay.
So it's based on force. And so if I go down, it will alert my wife or call my wife and say that there's been an issue. And it'll send the GPS location of where I am.
I feel like that could get a little bit out of control if you just kind of...
You don't have to turn it on.
Oh. We won't tell Don that.
But I mean, those are some of the things that you can get into. Another app that I highly recommend for mountain bikers or activity people in general is called Strava.
Strava,
Strava. And Strava is one of those apps that you use every time you go out, and it tracks your miles, it tracks your elevation.
Oh wow!
It tracks your speed, your heart rate. It puts you up against the other people that you're riding with.
Interesting.
It'll show PRs in terms of like how fast someone did that trail versus how fast you did that trail. So it'll give you benchmarks in that sense. It'll tell you essentially how many miles you've ridden for the year, how many miles you've ridden on a particular bike if you own more than one.
That's really cool. So does your group kind of all participate in that app and then have like in-group competitions?
Yes. So with Crank Yankers, we have a Crank Yanker specific Strava group. And for anyone that's interested in looking into getting hooked up with the Crank Yankers, they can go to Crank Yankers on Strava and ask to join, and we'll approve you. and now you'll be a part of that community.
Very cool.
And you'll see what everyone's doing in terms of when they're riding, how they're riding, what they've ridden in terms of speed, and so forth.
Does Crank Yankers, is there any sort of, do you have to be a certain level to be able to join the group and
Absolutely
start participating?
not. No, you just have to like to drink beer and ride bikes.
No. And be a good person?
And be a good person, yeah. Yeah,
That's good. Do you guys charge any dues or fees
no,
or anything
it's
like that?
completely free.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. And you had mentioned earlier in the beginning of the conversation that sometimes you guys go around and clean up the trails and do trail maintenance.
We do. Yeah. Yeah, we'll make a trail day. And we'll go out and, make, trails safer, pull rocks off trails. We've found that it's T100 or the Phoenix Mountain Preserve, there's been people out there that have tried to sabotage some of the trails. And I think
Trying to sabotage bikers specifically?
Yeah. And I think it's, these disgruntled hikers. And I want to go back to the etiquette aspect of mountain
absolutely.
biking,
I'd love to unpack and kind of be educated on what the etiquette is for mountain bikers versus hikers.
So that's one of those things. It's like, you have one bad mountain biker who pisses off a hiker, rides too close to him, maybe just goes too fast, is dangerous, and these hikers get really upset about that. And,
for sure. I mean,
there's these certain people out there that want to get back at the mountain biking community because they don't like us riding on trails. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things is we share those trails just as much as they share the hiking aspect of it, and so they will potentially sabotage certain trails and put large boulders in corners or over descents and stuff. And this happened it's happened a few years in a row. It was actually on the news.
Wow.
Where people had called, I think it was 3 or one of the
like 3 on your side or whatever.
That's it. Yeah, to come out and talk about this because they'd bring their kids and their children out to teach them how to mountain bike, and then they'd be going down a hill, and then there's this big boulder in the middle that wasn't there yesterday.
Seems like a lot of effort for something that's not that big of a deal.
Well, I know, and so that's one of those things. It's like whenever you're riding, I always use the bell on my handlebars, and I usually always ring it when I'm behind somebody, and I always say on your left or say hi, just be friendly.
Sure.
Slow down, when you're going to go past a hiker.
Especially in this day and age, because you see more and more hikers or just people out and they've got headphones in, so they may not even be aware that you're coming up behind them.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. I've run into several people that have been looking at their phone with the headphones on, and they don't even know you're there until you're passing them, and they get startled. And, woo! Type of thing. It's like, hey, eyes up, I'm coming right towards you, type of thing.
Yeah, you got to be aware of your surroundings, even if you're just hiking.
Yeah, I ended up buying this like bullhorn type of thing that I put on one of my bikes that it screeches really loud, and it makes kind of like a big duck call. It's loud as hell, but it works.
Yeah. I mean, you want to get people's attention so that they can move out of the way for their safety.
A general bell, there's some really nice little tiny low profile brass bells out there that have a long tone to them and is pretty easily heard.
Yeah. What are some other supplies that people should take out with them when they are mountain biking? Just some basics.
Yeah, so there's various levels of things that you may need or you may want to purchase based upon the type of riding you do. You'll have hip packs are real popular right now, so you don't have to carry a full backpack. Mm-hmm. Dakine has a really nice hip back that it's called the Hot Laps.
I'm picturing a fanny pack.
That's essentially what it is. It's a fanny pack, and it holds 2 liters of water. Wow. And it has enough storage in there for a spare tire and a CO2 and some snacks. And it's good for like 2 to 3 hours based on how much water intake you take in. And that's a really good
It's an advanced fanny pack.
It is. Yeah. And that's one of those things that you can utilize for your simple rides. You can put a little bit of medical supplies in it. You move up to like a Camelback or an Osprey size pack, and you may get like a 2.5, 3 liter deal. And that's something that you can stick, your medical supplies in.
So you want to make sure, one, being in Phoenix, Arizona, you have enough water.
Yep.
Sounds like you're recommending having maybe like a spare tube.
Yes.
I do know there are tubeless,
Yeah,
tires
but even
that are out
though
there.
tubeless, I've had tubeless tires on my bikes for a long, long time, and the punctures out here are generally a lot larger than
Sure.
what a solution can fill, especially for longer distances. So it's always good to have an extra tube.
So you can put a tube inside a tubeless
Yes.
tire. Okay.
Yeah.
I would imagine some sort of like Allen wrench set would probably be.
There you can buy like a multi-tool kit that's low profile that will have all your Allen keys that you need to wrench on your bike, as well as possibly a chain breaker for if that you can get your master link back in to your chain. I would have a tire lever on hand. Maybe a small set of pliers, but some of those multi-tools have pliers built into them.
I've been out riding before and have had, stuff breaks, and I've generally found that most other mountain bikers are super friendly and go out of their way to like help if you need anything and you're stuck on the trail.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely. That's one of those etiquette things of a mountain biking community. And you always ask if you're all right. If you're on the side of a trail, you always ask, are you good? Are you all right? And because if they're not, then you need to stop and help them.
For sure.
That goes to a story that happened to a buddy of mine yesterday. He was riding out a trail at Apache Wash, which is over off of Cave Creek towards like Carefree area, and he lost his driver's license on the trail. And this morning he posted up and said, I want to thank whoever brought my driver's license back and put it in my mailbox.
Wow.
Because someone found it on the trail, and
not a lot of people would do that,
and brought it back and put it in his mailbox. And that's just the mountain biking community.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we all look out for one another. And
I can attest to that. When I was riding with you, you had seen a guy just totally eat shit and was all scraped up and banged up, and he wasn't wearing a helmet. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And you kind of gave him the riot act on being out there and not wearing a helmet and, having crashed you made sure he was okay.
That's a no-no. I've crashed before, and if I hadn't had a helmet on, I probably could be dead.
Yeah.
I've cracked my helmets before, gone over the handlebars. I'm scraped up, all over the place. But you always wear a helmet.
Yeah, you got to protect your head.
Yeah, you really do. It's their prerogative. It's their life. You can only suggest it, but I'm a big advocate of safety.
For sure.
And also another one of those things that you need to have in your pack is you need to have your personal information written down on paper with, your blood type, your address, someone who they can call for an emergency, and that kind of thing. Because if for some reason you get knocked out and someone finds you, and they go through your bag, they'll at least know who you are.
That's really great information. I never even considered that. All the times I've gone out, I've never gone by myself. Always had friends, but that's great information to make sure that you have that in your pack in case you hurt yourself.
Yeah. It's just one of those things because it's survival in the sense.
Yeah. So with as many rides as you've done, what's one of the craziest stories that you can tell?
So last year, I went to this tribe gathering for Yeti bicycles because I'm a Yeti owner.
And Yeti is a brand?
Yeah, yeah. And they're specific to mountain biking.
Are they
They're based out of Colorado.
are they affiliated with the Coolers?
No.
No.
They're
Different
completely
companies.
different.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeti is a mountain biking company, manufacturer. It's YetiCycles.com if you want to look them up. They have some of the fastest riders in the world riding for them on enduro, downhill type of bikes and so forth, large travel to small travel bikes. Most of their bikes, I mean, are fairly expensive, and they're mostly all carbon. The new ones are. But they every year for their owners, they have a tribe gathering. And so last year they had it in Crested Butte, Colorado. And this was my first big mountain experience of riding.
Really, just last year with all the
big
years.
Mountain, yeah, for really riding downhill park where you actually put your bike on a chairlift and take it to the top of a mountain. And
Have you
ride.
not done that at Sunrise, the ski resort?
I've never ridden Sunrise. But I mean,
well,
you're talking.
I've done that.
Yeah, but you're riding berms and you're riding, big jumps and wooden features and all sorts of really fun stuff. But we did this ride that ended up being 32 miles, where it was with some of the pros out there. They loaded our bikes into a U-Haul, and there was probably about 100 of us, and they took us up to this mountain called Mount Tia Callie, and just kind of let us loose.
Wow.
And it was challenging because of the altitude. It was
I bet.
challenging because of the amount of climbing we had to do. And
Well, I picture in my head if you're taking a chairlift or they're driving you up there that it's all downhill.
it's not. And so this Mount Tia Callie was more cross country with a lot of uphill climbing. I think we climbed probably 4,500 feet elevation.
Jeez.
In one day. But the craziest aspect of the whole deal was, well, there's several crazy things that made up this ride. One was the flies. The flies were horrible. We had these big, like horse flies throughout the whole trail in Colorado, and they'd get into your helmet and everything else, and that was just miserable. But once we got past this whole fly situation, and probably about 20 miles in, we came to a tent, and they were serving tequila.
That's kind of nice.
And they were serving oranges and food and things that like bacon and stuff, for the riders, which was awesome because you make it this far, and so you replenish. And
So is that like a Yeti sponsored tent, or did somebody just?
Yeah, it was a Yeti.
Okay, cool.
Tent.
That's very cool.
So it was kind of like you made it to the halfway point. Nice. Let's do some shots. Get the jitters off from the flies and all that stuff. Here's some bug spray. Throw on. Now you're good. And so now we had to climb this huge ascent, and it was so steep that it was very hard to climb it on a bike. I had to push a lot, but especially with the air was getting so thin. We were getting up to about 11,000 feet elevation, and then we got hit by a hailstorm.
Oh, man.
So we're up in the clouds. The hailstorm comes in. I've never ridden anything nearly as extreme as this. We're trying to take cover in under trees and under, and so forth, whatever we can. We're sitting on a log, and the buddy of mine pops open a beer, and I'm like, how the hell are you able to drink a beer right now? We're like at 11,500 feet. It's hard enough to breathe, and you're freaking drinking beer. And then a couple other guys end up coming up that got caught, and we're all just drenched now. And we're all from different places. And I'm like, have you ever ridden this Tia Callie before? And he's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, what's it like going on the downhill? Because I'm thinking that now we're going to have to descend all the way down.
Yeah.
And it is soupy, muddy. Just as treacherous as you probably can imagine. Wet rocks, wet roots, narrow trees. and I'm scared, and I'm like thinking, what's this gonna end up being? He's like, oh man, there's these massive drops we gotta go over, and there's these big boulders and shit that you gotta like negotiate through, and I'm like, no. I'm like, dear God, should I just call my wife now and tell her I might not make it home?
Tell the kids I love them.
Yeah. So my buddy finished his beer. We were getting ready to go. We hiked back, continued hiking up this mountain, and we got to the top, and I said a little prayer. I'm like, God, please don't let me die today. Please, and all of a sudden, the rain stopped, the clouds cleared, and long and behold, this guy comes out of the forest with a red jacket on and a white cross on there, and he was the sweeper, and he said, I'm up here to make sure you guys all get down safely, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like, what? Praise God. And so we rode down, and it was probably the most fun ride I've ever had. It was we were slipping and sliding all around. I mean, it was scary at some of the parts, and some of the stuff you just couldn't stop, because if you did, you just slide.
Yeah.
And so you just had
kind
to
of
keep
controlled chaos.
The wheels moving, and the mud got so thick. I mean, it took off my chain from the derail, like from my cog, and but we made it down. We had to go put the bikes over our shoulders and hike over a river that was already raging with water because of the rain. And then we get back to the road, and the Yeti van was there waiting for us. And they said, "You guys want to ride back to camp?"
Hell yeah, we do.
And I looked at my buddies, and they said, "No, we're gonna ride this thing out. We're gonna ride all the way back."
Wow.
So I'm like, screw it.
That's determination.
We're gonna ride, So we sent the van back, and we all rode, like 4 of us all rode back another 6 miles.
Jeez.
Back to camp. And as we were getting there, they were finishing up the dinner, and as we were rolling in, the whole Yeti tribe turned to us and started clapping and cheering. And
that's rad.
It was so cool.
I bet that's the best beer and food that you had in a long time.
The pros came up to us and hung out with us. I ate dinner at Nate Hill's table. If you don't know who he is, he's got his YouTube channel. He travels the world and rides the most epic stuff out there. I met Richie Rude, and he's one of the top pro downhill racers out there, and had dinner with him. We got pictures with the actual Yeti put on their website.
Wow!
So we're on the Yeti website.
That's really
as
cool.
A group, and I mean, it was kind of like one of those rock star moments.
Yeah, probably very surreal.
Yeah, and then people just started feeding me booze, and it was downhill from there.
Very cool. Of those guys and maybe some others, who would you say that is your greatest mentor now? And if you could ride or race with anybody, who would that be?
Well, I mean, I'd have to say Nate Hills. He's just a super cool guy. He's super chill. I actually hung out with him last weekend, and where did I go? Where did I go?
So you guys are friends to this day?
We went to Snowmass. I was in Snowmass, Aspen last weekend. And he was there, and yeah, he remembered me from last year. This guy travels the world. I mean, he just got back from New Zealand riding, and he rides for Yeti as a Yeti affiliate. His girlfriend is like the head of the marketing for Yeti.
Wow.
And her name's Yeti Betty Sarah, and they have their big YouTube channels and so forth. But one of the cool things is this past weekend, I ended up tearing my tire. I ripped the sidewall on it, and it blew out. And we were doing this big ride the Saturday, and this was on a Friday, and no one had a tire. So Yeti had Shimano there. They had Fox Racing booths Tent there. They had everybody was there except for Maxis Tires. And it's like, damn it. Why wouldn't you have a tire company come to your tribe gathering? Because people are going to blow their tires out.
Yeah, right.
And I'm talking to Sarah who, and I'm like, Sarah, where can I get a tire at 6:00 in the evening on Friday in Aspen? And it's like, oh, most of these shops close at 6:30, 7:00. And I'm like, screwed. If I can't get a tire, I can't go on the ride in the morning. And so I hung out in the parking lot, and all these pros had their big white Sprinter vans all decked out with their beds in the back and, little bars set up and where they keep all their bikes and stuff on the back too. And I saw Nate's van there, and he walked up, and I'm like, hey, Nate. And I'm like, you remember me from last year? He's like, oh, yeah, bud. And I'm like, you wouldn't happen to have a spare rear tire, would you? He's like, what size? And I told him, 29, 2.5 or 2.3. And he's like, hold on. So he opened up his Sprinter van, and he's like, well, I do have this newer Maxis Aggressor. You can ride it, but I'm going to let you borrow it. Like,
I want it back when you're done.
Like, let me borrow it. Let me just give you some money. He's like, no. You can borrow it. And so, all weekend, I'm like, all right, I'm going to give you your tire back. I'm going to give you your tire back. And then, the last day, I'm like, you really want that tire back? He's like, no.
Yeah, that's funny.
So I got one of the Pros rear tires on my bike, which is kind of cool. Everybody said that, but I didn't want to be that guy.
No, you don't want to be that guy. So what does the future hold for Arizona Crank Yankers?
We're just going to continue doing what we do and drink beer and ride bikes.
Yeah. If somebody wants to reach out to you guys and kind of join up and learn about mountain biking, or if they're already advanced and want to hang out with some like-minded people, how do people find you?
So we have a Facebook page, Crank Yankers. You can go find us on that. You can find us on Strava. We have Crank Yankers at, was it yahoo.com? Or no, it's Arizona, AZCrankYankers at yahoo.com.
Okay.
So you can reach out that way. But the best way is probably either the Strava or the Facebook.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, is there anything that you want maybe to tell our audience that we didn't touch on?
Well, let me look. I made some notes here
of
sure. My own things to talk about.
Yeah.
I want to plug actually a local bike shop that does really good work for maintenance.
Absolutely.
And that would be Julian and Gonzalez over at Cranky Monkey. He's in our neighborhood. He's right off 32nd Street near Shea.
I think I've taken my bike there to get serviced many times.
Yeah, he's a super cool guy.
It's in the Salatai parking lot,
exactly.
Isn't it?
It's right next to Salatai there.
Yeah.
Another great bike shop here in Central Phoenix that I recommend is Slippery Pig.
These names are super creative.
Joe down at Slippery Pig, he's always willing to help out. And actually, they have a Wednesday night ride that starts from Enchiladas over in Phoenix. And they ride T100 every Wednesday night. I think it starts at 7:00. It's a good group. Crank Yankers are usually there in support.
Even in the summertime?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It goes from 7 to 10, 11 sometimes. I mean, they sometimes close down Enchiladas after the ride. So you start there. You start at the parking lot of Enchiladas. You ride and then end up there again and have dinner. And it's a pretty cool little event.
It's a real community that you guys have really formed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're all friends.
That's awesome.
And we all want to take everybody under the wing of mountain biking and get them going.
Yeah.
And help them out.
Well, you're passionate about it, and that kind of shows.
So let's see what else. Another aspect of things that, for those that have the higher end bikes, Phoenix is one of those areas that you really have to be careful with your bike and where you leave it.
Oh yeah.
And
they grow legs and will walk away.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you've gotten done from a ride and you go have lunch or go have a dinner somewhere and you leave your bike out on the back of your rack on your car, you want to make sure you have that thing completely locked up, double locked, chained up.
Yeah.
However, because
good advice.
People will take your bike. And that happens a lot here in Phoenix.
That's so unfortunate.
It really is. It sucks because I mean I see it all the time. I see $4,000 or $5,000 mountain bikes gone in an instant.
That's great. That's so funny that that happens with mountain biking. I've always found it odd. I like to play golf, and when you finish with golf, you put all your clubs just outside, sitting on the rack, and you go into the clubhouse and you eat and you have some beers, and you have thousands of dollars just sitting out there, just sitting outside that could easily walk away.
Sure.
But I've never heard of that happening or seen anybody's clubs ever get taken.
Right.
So it's weird that happens with mountain biking. Probably just because it's not, you're probably parked at restaurants and out in the public where golf you're
and it
at
can
a
happen
clubhouse.
anywhere in the city, really, or anywhere for that matter. People just take them, and it sucks that it happens. And the best way that I've found to deter that, one is a really good chain lock that can't be cut with just normal cutters. I use a kryptonite chain linked lock system. I paid like $125 for this lock,
which is just a fraction of the cost of what some of these bikes run. So
right. And then I put Spot GPS underneath my seat. And so this is one of those things that not a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody else that's actually done it. I was very heavily involved in the Baja racing scene for race trucks, and I'd go down to Baja and help with a team that was doing race with off-road racing, and what they utilize for tracking these vehicles through the desert of the Baja is a company called Spot, and they're these tiny little pucks that transmit GPS signal back to a satellite and give you real-time feedback on where that asset is.
Wow.
And so they make them small enough that you can actually put them up underneath your bike seat. So you can track your asset wherever it is in the world.
Wow.
As long as it has fresh batteries in it and it's turned on, for that matter. Like I just sent my bike up, this past week to Park City, Utah, and I use a company called Bike Flights. And they will actually come. FedEx will come and pick up your bike and take it to your destination, and it's all coordinated through this app called Bike Flights.
Nice.
It's like $50.
That makes it super convenient.
Super convenient, because I wouldn't want to travel with it through the terminal at the airport, and so it's cool because I could track my bike.
Could you imagine one of those luggage guys just chucking your bike on an airplane?
Well, that's it. I mean, on my Evoc case, I have do not lay flat, because I got carbon wheels in
you
this
have
thing.
you have the Ferrari of bikes. I've seen your bike. It's like super nice.
But when you have an investment in these things, and you want to make it to your destination and not have any issues, and you want it to arrive the way that you packed it,
right?
So Bike Flights, plug, love them. Spot GPS, check it out. It will save you if you have a bike stolen and you have a Spot GPS on your bike. You can locate it anywhere. Call the cops, call your buddies, go find it, go get it. It'll pinpoint it to the accuracy of latitude, longitude.
Do you put extra like homeowners insurance on some of these things?
Yeah,
I do. That's probably smart.
Because I got $10,000 in my 2 mountain bikes.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. What else? Talked about Wednesday night rides, Trail Forks, Pink Bike.
When does Crank Yankers usually meet?
Well, it's various weekend rides.
Yeah.
We will plan a ride and post it up on the site. There is an annual ride that we do with our group down in Tucson every year. It's called Pachanga, and it's super fun. It's right on Mount Lemmon, and we do it in conjunctions with the Tucson Off-Road Racing Organization. It's Torca, and Torca is the Tucson mountain biking group down there, and they coordinate this gathering for a full weekend where they'll have manufacturers come out and demo their bikes right on the mountain. You can take a demo bike for the full day
Wow.
at no cost and ride it on Mount Lemon.
That's awesome.
And have it shuttled. So they have, they'll supply vans where they'll shuttle you up and down the mountain all day long. And you camp out at the campground on Mount Lemon. They supply the food. And it's just one big party.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a blast. And they have little games and tournaments and things, so.
Very cool. Well, we'll put links
things.
to all this stuff that you mentioned in the show notes so that people can reach out to you guys if they're interested. Thank you so much, Brent, for coming in today. I really appreciate you sitting down with me and talking about one of your passions and mountain biking.
Yeah, love
it. Definitely a very cool sport, and hopefully our audience got something out of it. So thank you guys for joining us. This was another episode of Danny Brown Talks Phoenix, and we will see you next time.